My name's Harry Hewitt. I was born in 1930. I went to Oswin Avenue School in September 1941 and I left Easter of 1944. I left at Easter and was taken down to Briggs Motor Bodies. And I can remember a young clerk, should be about 16, I couldn't spell assembler. And I had several goes at, and she had to do it and she was disgusted, like, I was making side panels for Lancaster engines as a riveter. Well, I started on this section. Most of the workers were women and they worked damn hard, they were good. Young women they were, and married women. If you were a certain age, you had to work. And I got put, that first morning, I got put with, they called her Shirley, she came from Edlington, she'd be 16, and an older woman, about the same age as my mother, I guess. I can't remember her name. And because my job, you put a sheet of this aluminium on a jig, and then you put, it was like an anti-drum thick paint, and it was like glue they used to have, kept heated up, you know. It could scald you. And you were, my job was to get this and paint it on roughly where they were going. Then the frame of the jig went over, then they dropped these what are called stiffener panels on top. They would drill pilot holes in, 1/8 of an inch, size 30 really, and just put some of these rivets in, and then put it to one side ready for going on a machine, which later on you did 500 rivets in about 5 minutes. You'll think of that. The record was 4.5. And because I was too slow, this Shirley dabbed it on, got it, went on my hand. And I was just about, I went, you, and she said, naughty, naughty. But the things I took in those days, because there were four young lads like us. When you got to 18, they disappeared, the joint forces. And we used to get to all kinds of things. You used to go climbing on the roof and doing things we weren't supposed to. Now, I didn't know, but they kept a list of these offences you did. And if you got up to 10, you'd have got fired. And I got up to 8, I think it was. And I got a warning, you know. And I thought, oh, because my aunt and uncle were very strict. They were good, they're excellent for me, strict, but, and I thought, oh, no more of that. But luckily for me, there was an underforeman who saw something good in me and talked to me, and he went up to the central office and borrowed these Ford books on engineering and machines. And so he said, I'll put this book, one at a time, inside my desk, and during your lunch break you can come and look at it. And that started me off. And we'd got massive tool room up at the top end of the factory, and because there were so many people working there, we had staggered lunch breaks. So when I finished my sandwiches, I'd walk up there, and at the side was a chap, and I used to plague him, a toolmaker, mate, working. What are you doing? What are you doing that? He'd come all the way from London, because they were short to get away from Blitz. They needed people where they weren't being bombed. And I eventually got by that time I was pretty good at football, and the tool-room team were good at sport, cricket and football, and they took it very seriously. And the winger had got it in one of the games, had got his ankle broken, and they wanted a winger. So my friend, who was he was a year older than me, he was an apprentice in the tool room. And he told him about me, and I was quickly into the tool room and played in the football, and that's how I started being trained as a toolmaker. When I used to go to night school, it was at Bowlby Junior School, and you did, I think it was J1, J2, and then when you passed then, you went to the tech school in town, and I think you did started S1, S2, S3, and you got your national. I never did, I only did so much of it. And but a lad I worked with when I left school, I went to Briggs Motor Bodies, which was a shadow aircraft factory, and we worked on the I was making side panels for Lancaster engines as a riveter. And this lad, he lived at Intake, but he used to come, because we were friends, he would come to Bowlby Junior School for night school. And I would walk with him into town, and we usually went to Newton's for fish and chips, and then he would catch a bus from Northbridge home, and I'd walk back home. Another incident that happened there. The headmaster of that night school was, I think they called him Anderson, who was the maths teacher at the technical school. They were very severe, and he invited people. The English lesson, the English one, they gave us as to do until we went again, was it a good? Would it have been a good thing to blow up the Houses of Parliament? And he said, you can put anything down you want. Well, in the war, at that stage of the war, we were encouraged we were allies with the Soviets, and we were encouraged to be close. I had a bike, and I used to make aircraft, and I used to build aircraft, and on my bike I'd got a Red Star. I was no communist. I was just, and I wrote an article as a free expression. Next thing, when I handed them in, teacher disappeared, and in came storming Anderson and said, "Who's R.E.M.E, Hewitt?" Right. So I asked her up. He said, "Do you realise you're a communist?" I said, "I'm not a communist." "Why have you written this?" Oh my God. I always remember that, frightened me to death. That's how it went. We were very, at that time, Russia would say we'd have lost the war if it hadn't been for the Russians. But, it was weird, very weird. I was in a protected occupation. I was an apprentice toolmaker, ages 18. And at that age, you want a bit of adventure and excitement. So when my call, when I got papers to go for an interview, I went to Sheffield, and because I'd done quite a lot of training, used to go every Sunday to a RAF field at Recollects, and I was on a pilot navigator bomb aimer course. And when I went to Sheffield, they automatically put me down for the RAF. But my cousin, who was in the RAF, told me, it turned out to be wrong, there were no aircrew vacancies. So I told the recruiting officer at Sheffield I would join the army. He said, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Because I'm going to try and get in the Army Air Corps." And so I got my calling up papers to go in the army, and I was going into the R.E.M.E, Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. So I went up to the personnel officer at Ford Motor Company and said, got me papers. He said, "Well, you won't be going." He said, "You're in a reserved occupation. You're not going." And he fought it. And usually, when I'd experienced this with my friends, when they got their call-up papers, they had a week off before they were due to go. But he wouldn't let me have any time off, and I actually worked right up to the end of the day before I went off. And he called me to his office, and he was very angry. He'd been trying, but he couldn't overrule the decision. And so I went to a place called Lanford near Bournemouth for basic training. And actually I realised when I hadn't been in long, I'd made a big mistake. First of all, the army was totally different to what I was used to, going to RAF camps. And the other thing was, as a national serviceman, initially I was only going to do 12 months, and then I would come out. But they wanted me to sign on for 3 years to stand any chance of going in the flying Army Air Corps. And I realised by then that no way was I going to gamble doing that, and that was a wise decision. But yeah, it was a good experience. As I keep telling my son and daughter and my family, if the only thing it taught me was craft. It altered I had some good experiences and made some good friends, but it wasn't like what I was used to, as I say, visiting RAF camps. And then when they eventually shut it down, I had a travelling job for Ford Motor Company. I looked after certain component factories, because 80% of a car comes from bought out parts. And I became a workaholic there. That was for 15 years. I did that job, and then when I was 56 years old. Well, let me rephrase it. When I was 54 years old, because I'd started work at 14, I'd got 40 years servicing, so I'd contributed to a full pension, so I didn't have to pay it. After that, you could do additional voluntary contributions. I didn't do that. And 2 years after that, they brought out a scheme, all to do with Maggie Thatcher, where experienced men could make way for a lot of young people who couldn't find jobs. So the government put so much money in, and I retired at 56 on full pension, whereas before I'd have retired even with full amount in, half pension, and of course lump sum and all that, and the best day's work I ever did.
If you would like to know more about the Ossie Through the Ages project, then please email me at Tony Armstrong 1959 @outlook.com.